But I do want to start with the Flyers schedule release because if you're a hockey fan, this is one of the very few days that you kind of like live for, I guess. And you try to figure out just how screwed is your team. Now, there are plenty of teams that are going to be actively competing for a Stanley Cup this year who are looking at their calendars right now saying, all right, this is okay, this is bad, this sucks, this is great. The Flyers are in a really weird spot because the start of their schedule is death. It is absolute death. There is no getting around it. The way that the Flyers season is set to begin is something that would make even the best teams probably feel at least slightly nauseous. And so we're going to break this thing down month by month, and I'm going to hit you with some of the major points that come out of it. Now, one thing that I will note ahead of time is that the Flyers are going to play not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 14 back-to-backs this season. 14! Here's the bad news. If you wanted good news off of 14 back-to-backs, here's the bad news. Only 2 of those 14 back-to-backs are both going to be played at the Xfinity Mobile Arena, which means only 2 times out of 14 sets of back-to-backs, the Flyers will play both legs of that back-to-back at home. There are a few where they're split. Let's actually go there first. I'll pull this thing up. We'll see how we feel about it. By all means, you can let me know in the comments how you're feeling about it on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Remember, if you're on X, you have to click the video first to go into old Periscope mode. And if you comment there, I can bring it up on the screen. It'll also get added to the comments down here in the bottom right corner of the screen. All right, so I have to do this in a kind of weird way, but we'll figure it out together. This is not the prettiest graphic. I never said it was the prettiest graphic. This came courtesy of your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. All right, here we go. I want you to take a look at these 14 back-to-backs, okay? Because this is what I was talking about, of being the real issue. So you can see their first back-to-back of the year is early November, November 1st and 2nd, home against Toronto, home against Calgary. They don't play another 2-leg home back-to-back again until April 13th and 14th when they take on 2 likely playoff-bound teams, Carolina and Montreal. So they've bookended those double home back-to-backs, and the rest of it isn't the greatest. I mean, all right, so mid-November, St. Louis and Dallas, back-to-back on the road. You have an Islanders-Devils back-to-back on the road at the end of November. Oh, by the way, that November 28th game, one of the other big takeaways, that's Black Friday. Because of the Eagles playing on Black Friday, the Flyers aren't playing a Black Friday game at home. It will be against the Islanders. And then the next day, the next night, they're playing at New Jersey. They have a home-and-home with Carolina mid-December. They have a game at home against Vancouver, and then a relatively short trip to Chicago at the end of December, just before Christmas. Then you get to the very end of the year, right, end of the calendar year. That's when you end up out west. One nice thing that we'll see here in a minute is that the Flyers aren't starting out on a long West Coast trip, which is actually kind of nice for a change. But at the end of the calendar year, as you get ready to flip it over, at Vancouver, at Calgary, to end the calendar year. Then you're at Buffalo, at Pittsburgh, mid-January. You are at Columbus, at Boston at the end of January. You are at Washington, at the Rangers, which isn't that big of a deal, but that's at the end of February. Mid-March, home against Washington, at Minnesota. You go back out west, mid-March, at Anaheim, at Los Angeles, back-to-back. You have at Detroit versus Dallas, March 28th and 29th. And, of course, home against the Red Wings, and then at the Islanders at the very beginning of April. So, again, 14 sets of back-to-backs seems kind of nuts. But there are other things that are like very notable in the schedule. So let's kind of pop it off this way, okay? Let's just take a goosey gander really quick. This is the overall schedule. And one of the things that you're going to notice, it's something that's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but in fairness, it's something that we've all kind of wanted, right? So you have this right here in February. So the Flyers will play on February 3rd and February 5th. They'll play home against Washington, home against Ottawa. Then you have a 20-day break from that Ottawa game to then playing at Washington. So you have a near 3-week gap, break in the schedule for the Olympics. Now, in fairness, we all want to see NHL players competing in the Olympics. So I don't think there's anybody who's a real hockey fan who's going to complain about it, right? But it is important to kind of point out that is a 3-week break that actually does come at a pretty damn good time, very close to, it kind of gives you the ability that if you have your top end players that are going to represent their countries in the Olympics, great, they get to go represent their countries. But if you have a bunch of guys who aren't going to be Olympic caliber players, and the Flyers will have plenty of them, those guys get to go home and rest the bodies for 3 weeks. Those guys get to get ready for that push, that final 3-game stretch in February, that tough month of March, that month of April. And again, although I'm a little bit less bullish than I was because I thought the Flyers would try to go out and get a guy who's like 1A caliber like an Ersson to kind of compete with him, Vladar could be fine maybe. I still think they're going to be in the race for a playoff spot late in the season. So if nothing else, you're going to be able to get a lot of your younger guys healthy. You're going to be able to get some of your vets some much needed time away for a few weeks in February and maybe go into a stretch run where that disparity between the top teams and that middle of the table kind of team, those top 3, top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, and then let's say the next 5 or 6 teams, right, that could end up being the remainder of the playoff field and then the teams that are kind of competing for that wild card, that disparity might actually get narrowed a bit because you would think that a lot of those top-end teams are going to have a lot of guys playing in the Olympics, whereas those teams that are battling for a wild card spot or maybe are 7th or whatever in the conference might not have quite as many Olympic players. They can get healthy. It could actually lead to a really interesting scenario in the playoffs. Again, this all comes down to injuries. It all comes down to overall health of your team. But I like the chaos that the Olympic break might end up causing and the fact that you could end up seeing a higher likelihood that a healthier team gets into the playoffs as a slightly lower seed and maybe pulls off an upset because of it. So I'm still convinced the Flyers are going to be in that conversation. Joe Papel says need one more bottom 10, Russ. I don't, as of right now, I don't see them being a lottery bound team. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But we'll see. I mean, anything can happen. So here's the real tough spot if you're the Flyers. I'm going to switch this out really quick. The first month of the season is death. I mean, I know that I said it's death, but like you need to look at it with me because it's absolutely brutal. This is the kind of thing that just like should not happen, but it's happening. The start of the season is about as awful as you could have ever feared it would be. I'm trying to do this in a way that it's not going to break my system. All right, let's see. We'll get that down. We'll go here. All right, we'll try to do this. Let's see if this works. I think it will. And there we go. Yes. All right, cool. That looks better. October. We have to look at this. The Flyers are going to play the reigning Stanley Cup champions twice in the first 3 games. They are going to play twice against the Panthers in their first 3 games of the season. And interspersed between those games, the Hurricanes. So you've got Panthers, Hurricanes, Panthers, then the Jets, Minnesota, Seattle, Ottawa, Islanders, Penguins, Predators. That could be an absolutely horrific start to the season. I mean, you're going to go on the road the first 2 games of the season at Florida, at Carolina. That's rough. You get to come home and you feel like, oh, little home cooking. You have 4 straight games at home. Florida, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Seattle. Then you're at Ottawa, a team that I keep being told by people, well, it might surprise people. Okay, maybe. Then you're home again against an Islanders team that's going to be much improved, a Pittsburgh team that is probably going to go through some struggles, but they're still a legitimate rival. And then a Nashville team that's going to desperately be looking to bounce back off of a year that no one saw coming. So that's kind of brutal. Not a great way to start your season. That's tough. I don't care what anybody says. That's about as tough as it gets. And listen, if you zoom out the rest of the schedule, there are things about it that you feel kind of iffy about. Now, we talked about the back-to-backs, but it really is that first month of the season that, to me, is like the holy shit moment. Now, again, you bookend those back-to-backs, those home back-to-backs, early in the season, end of the season. I want you guys to take a look really quickly with me at what's going to happen in April, because March is a really packed month. Ton of games, right, because of the Olympic break. But if you take an actual goosey gander at what this team is going to have to do down the stretch to try to make a playoff spot, like if I'm going to be right that the Flyers are going to be closer to making the playoffs than making the lottery, they're going to have to fight through this. And in fairness, I don't know how they're going to do it. They'll be home against Detroit, okay. At the Islanders, again, a much improved team. Home against Boston, we'll see. At the Devils, who should be better than they were last year. At Detroit, at Winnipeg. And then your last two games of the season are against teams that you would expect. Remember, this is one of the ones that we outlined at the beginning of the show. This is your second of two home back-to-backs. Home against Carolina, home against Montreal. The only hope that you have at that point is maybe Carolina have solidified their position in the playoffs, and maybe they'll look to take it a little bit easier, rest a couple of guys. That Montreal game could end up being for one of those last playoff spots, could end up being for a wild card spot. So that's kind of rough. It's not ideal. And the worst part, like if we have to go back through like what is the actual, like, I guess, biggest negative of it all, when you go back and you look at that October schedule, you are burning 7 of your home games, 7 of your 41 home games, right? That's tough. It's like what, almost 16% of your season? Let's see, hold on. Can I get the calculator here? 7 divided by 41. What did I say? 16%? 17 point. Well, it would be round up 17.1%. That's pretty good. Good mental math up here. Thanks to all my math teachers along the way for helping with that arithmetic. But you're burning about 17% of your home games in that first month of October. That's rough. That's brutal. And it's against very good competition. So we'll see what happens. But this is like one of those things that people get excited about before everything actually gets real. Now, in fairness, training camp will be coming up before you know it. The preseason will hit before you know it. The games will get going before you know it. I mean, hell, we are now past the midway point of July. I know. It feels gross. It feels disgusting. It shouldn't be happening. This isn't how the world is supposed to work. July, when it comes, is supposed to be like, oh, we just got through June. July is so long, and then August is so far away, and then everybody goes back to school, and all the teachers go back to work, and then you get your home back to yourself without people trying to knock down the door every few minutes in between meetings to ask, can I have a snack? 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 Forgetting that their mom is available and readily available to say, no, you can't have a snack. You just didn't eat your lunch. I'm not projecting. I'm just pointing out that the back to school time is not a bad time here. But it does feel like the summer's practically over. We have a month until everybody really does start to go back to school. Think about that. That's crazy.